Cerveza cristal. Cerveza cristal.
Five. Rangers in space.
And just like dummies.
Oh yeah, here we go. Faiz is back, and newer than ever. Space Faiz, what are you doing here? You know, it just felt right. I mean, I am Space Faiz, and this is Faiz, so you know. Yeah, I get that, but this is kind of my channel, so, you know, I don't mind you hanging out in the corner, but can I at least do my thing? You know, you're right. I'm just gonna take my water jug. I'm gonna stick around, though, just in case there's any meanwhile. Actually, no, I'm gonna go into see ya. Alright, let's get to it! Now, it's no secret that, despite the name, Faiz is actually my favorite Kamen Rider season. And it's 2 parts character drama, 1 part suit design, and another part nostalgia. As far as nostalgia is concerned, it's the first Rider show that I actually watched way back in, I think it was 2005. As most people already know, I first jumped into Rider when I thought that it might have been episodic like Super Sentai. But then I watched the currently airing Kamen Rider season, which at the time was Hibiki, and it was at episode 45. So, to my shock, I opened up that episode just to see a man just butt naked just laid out on the ground. Needless to say, I was like, cool. Let me see what else we got. So I went into the back catalog to check out what other shows were available, and although Kabuto became the first show that I watched week to week, Faiz was actually the first show that I fully watched. Though, that was with the mistake of watching the film first. Oh boy! We talking nostalgia? Look, I didn't say nostalgia 3 times. Ah, shit. You just did! Yeah! Boy, them Zeo crystals just be hitting. Some folks just can't vibe with Faiz. It's a different show from how Rider is nowadays. You get arcs that last for weeks, monsters of the week being few and far in between, as a lot of them just kind of appear reoccurringly as characters. Be they villains or somewhere in between. There's the whole thing about laundry and its nice white cleanness. And then the build up to a final character villain that's just like, it's alright, it's kind of underwhelming. Listen, Faiz has its flaws. Immensely, it does. A lot of shows have their flaws. But what hooked me was the characters. Because the dynamic between the Orphanage trio, our main trio, the correlation and correspondence between them, then the additional cast that tries to alter the dynamics is what makes Faiz shine. With that being said, in terms of sticking the landing and just being overall fantastic, Paradise Lost is where it's at. You just need a little bit of the Faiz show to understand the alternate timeline of events here and where the point of divergence could possibly happen. Now, with that being said, I heard that Austin St. John recently said some shit that just ain't hitting right for me. Boy, did he say some shit. So, look, I'm just gonna go take a. Oh my boy here, you're looking kind of dusty. You mind if I get a whiff? Oh, in poor taste, you say? Well, to that I say good day, sir. Good day, sir. All right. Where were we? Yeah, so even though we had supplemental Faiz content throughout the years, none of it exactly fit right, as the story shifted narratively from being about Kiba Yuji and Inui Takumi to focusing more on Takumi and Kusaka. Of course, we know that both Kusaka and Kiba get dusted in both timelines, with Takumi's fate being ambiguous in the series and open-ended in the film. Now, for those unaware, Kiba's actor Masayuki Izumi tragically passed away back in 2015 at the age of 35, so any potential plot threads done with the character are sadly out the window. As such, the sequence of the following Faiz content focused on the character dynamic of Kusaka and Takumi that frankly just didn't feel right or true to those characters. Enter Kamen Rider Faiz Paradise Regained. 20th anniversary follow-up to my favorite show? Sold. The head writer Toshiki Inoue is doing it too? Double sold. But then there's the name, and I was hard in the camp that it would be a sequel to the film Paradise Lost, as both are named after poems, with Regained being the sequel to Lost. But nope, not at all. The intro bit of the film shows clips from both the shows and the film to further confuse, but this film fits almost perfectly as a sequel to the show. But then there is the issue of Takumi still being alive, which, like I said, would make more sense in a film sequel notion, but then you have Kusaka being alive. And the dude's been dust in both timelines. But then there's Kaido, who dies in the film, but is actually still alive at the end of the series. So the confusion on comprehension really starts getting into the weeds, especially as the film opens up. Smart Brain, the organization that was helmed by Orphanox to advance their grip on society to become the dominant race, is still around. But leading them is Kitazaki, who was a reoccurring villain in the main series as the Dragon Orphanoch and Kamen Rider Delta for a short time before just getting bored with it, goes on a power trip, and eventually gets done in by the Orphanoch King. So, why is he alive? Now, as far as movie recaps go, they tend to be a little bit different than my show recaps tend to go, because I'm just going to be highlighting a lot of different key events and maybe going out of order in terms of sequences just because a film in itself has a lot to go over. And in case there wasn't any indication before, full spoilers for this film, the series, and the other film. So, yeah, I guess if you're watching this and you haven't seen any of that stuff, why? However, as to what was mentioned before, as to what the hell is even going on with this world, the biggest questions had are actually answered within the film itself, with others from the series just not being touched upon at all. See, Smart Brain is now a government property, and their focus is to eliminate any and all Orphanochs. Once again, showing that humanity can be just as bad as the Orphanochs, and the goal was just coexistence. Kusaka somehow returned with a choker that's looking completely out of character, and Takumi went out to get milk. Mayo, and just never returned. Which is just enough wiggle room for Kusaka to try and slide on in and rejection. Keitaro's laundry business is up and running, but the big man himself couldn't be asked to show up. Instead, we get his nephew, joined by Thirsty Girl, out to bag herself a man out of one of the others in the crew. One of which being the new Delta user, because Mihara who? We get introduced to Sun Sun Reina, who is the new rider on the block as Muse, who has a bit of a transformation issue. Oh boy, I'm definitely looking. Take it on! Take it on! She out here thinking that we're about to pull a Maho Shoujo transformation, but this is Kamen Rider and not Cutie Honey. So, look, you'll be aight. Oh wait, Inoue wrote this? Run, Reina, run! They gon' get you! Riot Troopers are back, and look, after the Demons Troopers from Revice, this here is a nice suit in comparison. Also, John from Gates? Look, Inoue out here doing the Lord's work, about to give this man a proper on-screen transformation. Look at that, Takahashi. Muse is from Smart Brain's new Orphanoch cleanup initiative, complete with Snitch Hotline. See this old ass lady? Fuck that old ass lady. Bro out here saving lives and she don't even care about him because he ain't human. Takumi is actually alive and barely well, but working for Smart Brain though. And although some hot sauce flubs his game up, he actually came back with the mayo.
Cerveza cristal. Cerveza cristal.
Takumi was actually getting ready to get dusted, but luckily new age medicine from Smart Brain kept him alive, just enough to be their lapdog and do some street justice for them. Reina, however, soons it up and uses her jealousy of Takumi and Mari's past relationship and kicks it up a notch with the fact that we know Mari's backstory of being part of the Ryusei school, where a bunch of kids got injected with orphanage cells. But Mari never quite had enough to allow her to become a writer. But here, they make it enough to actually turn her into an orphanage. That's right, Mari is now officially a cat girl, which she don't like, and thus... Oh, Takumi on the other hand, does like it. So much so that we get steaming orphanage on orphanage action. Barely and awkwardly. But beggars can't be choosers. And Reina, with all her misdeeds, decides to heel turn and gets full penetration organ blowout, with Kitazaki now being the new muse. So we end up finding out the Smart Brain CEO is actually an android, and that's how Kitazaki is back. And Kusaka? Yeah, he's an android too. So, with two baddies up, Takumi and Mari take them on, just for Keitaro's nephew Jotaro to show up with the OG Faiz gear, showing us that old school beats new school any day of the week, and flip phones are just better. You ever just aggressively hang up on someone on a touchscreen phone? Lame. Then you ever get so mad that you want to throw your phone across the room because of the instance, but you realize, hey, this is all touchscreen, this shit's about to get cracked. No, I'm not gonna do that. At least flip phones, you get mad? Fuck you! Throw that shit across the room? Still good! That is, unless you tried. We are left with an open-ended conclusion of Kusakabot being rebuilt and being the new head of Smart Brain, and Takumi getting a new lease on life.
Cerveza cristal. Cerveza cristal.
Complete.
With this film, we get the debut of 3 new writers in the forms of New Faiz, New Kaiza, and Muse. So with that, let's talk forms. The Faiz Next is a form that looks better in promo stills and action shots than just dead on. As although the suit looks great with all the accented details, the chest is really one of the parts that just makes me wish they did something more with. As the chest opens up, being an iconic portion of the original Faiz suit to the point that it was even done in Revice with their homage to it, but with here, it just doesn't work well for me. I get it that they wanted to focus a lot on the emphasis for the Faiz symbol, but it's good. It's not great by any means. It looks fantastic in motion and in some angles, and like my wallpaper on my computer is a nice little promo shot of it, which it looks great there. But then, in the show, it's kind of weird. It just varies depending on the angle that we're looking at it. Going into Excel form, however, the still photo does not do it justice as they really lean into the whole chroma color change. But once again, though the chest just slides open, it's not as dynamic as I would like. Kaiza, on the other hand, feels like a very last second addition, as they really just kept the undersuit and belt the same, with the only difference being the phone and the upper body, as the arms and legs are just the same as their old armor. It's okay. I mean, I like the new stuff, and the chest is actually a bit better, but the mismatch of old with new just isn't that great. Hopefully, if they continue into this entry further, then they can finish the suit. Muse is the new writer on the block, and it's just a new Faiz palette swap with a different upper body. It is probably the best suit in the film, though it suffers from the opposite effect that Faiz does, where it looks good in stills but bad in motion, as it really comes down to the shoulders just flapping around in shots. Rating time! So after so many years, this was a gift that I did not expect but oh so loved to see it. It had a lot of the tropes of Inoue's writings. It left me in hype in some instances, questions with others, but then left the door open for some more. However, as much of a Faiz fan as I am, I do see a lot of faults with this film. As such, it's gonna be getting the Build B! So it's been 20 years, and for me personally, more around 18 years since I first watched the series. It's my most rewatched writer show to date, and when I first rejoined and rediscovered the Toku community, I came to find out that this and many of the shows that I enjoyed from my youth had become more universally disliked, with certain history of videos having others form opinions from anothers. Though, like I said before, the series is not perfect and still has its flaws. I still remain that I enjoyed it immensely. And with Paradise Regains, it follows a similar vein, but there are some issues. First of all, the film being an hour long leaves a lot to be desired, and I know that some people will be quick to point out that the O's 10th was also an hour long, sure, but that had supplemental content that were relevant to the film and other things that we just won't talk about. With the Faiz 20th, we got the murder mystery that shouldn't tie into this at all and feels more like a hyper battle video than anything really relevant to what this film had to offer. Thus, anything additional that they could have thrown in here would have worked out. The biggest omission from this is that the Orphanot King is missing. And if you've seen Faiz, you know that he still lives and is just biding his time. And look, I'm not going to go to outsiders for answers because that's Takahashi writing that, not Inoue. Also on the missing list, we have Mihara, who is the primary Delta user, who, as much of a nothing character as people misremember him as, was still part of the team. Now, headcanon is that the new and now dead Delta user Hisao is one of the kids at the orphanage Mihara was left in charge of at the end of the series. Since that in itself is another plot point that kind of was left unaddressed. Oh, let's see here. Time to show my age. I was 14 when Faiz came out. About 16, 17 when I actually watched the series. And can I just say that a lot happens in 20 years. A lot changes in 20 years. But these characters, not so much. There is a bit of maturity that just feels disingenuous because it feels like the characters of Kusaka, Takumi, and Mari are still being written like they're in their early 20s, but should have somewhat of a different yet similar vibe to them. And this might just be Inoue's writing issues in terms of trying to pick back up with characters after 20 years later, because it almost feels like nothing major happened in that time. Usually this would be addressed like the world has moved on without them and they refuse to change with the times, but that's not really the case here at all. This is where I give something like Power Rangers Once and Always credit. In the 25 to 30 years that these characters have left their run on their shows, coming back to them feels like a proper where are they now situation as you see the growth in them, not just from an age perspective, but also in terms of what they're doing at this stage in their life. The fact that it feels like Takumi and Mari have just been living together and never shacked up until now kind of feels odd. Kusaka, still trying to slide into them cheeks in the most teen drama sense, is also very jarring. Since Orphanox were still up and about and there were sure to be some hostilities, at least enough for the government to interfere and thus create the new Smart Brain, the fighting for Takumi probably never stopped. Though we don't know exactly how long he went out for Mayo. It could have literally been right after the finale of the show, which would explain his lack of knowing Jotaro. But they really should have used some de-aging stuff or something because, ain't working. But that would at least explain a lot in terms of how Takumi still comes off like he hasn't changed much, and his childish outbursts just to get into Mari's pants. But if he was indeed being Winter Soldiered for 20 years, that would have been a great side content for us to have before this actually came out. Though some of the characterizations are some of the weaker aspects of this, on the counterbalance, the actors still got it. Kaido is still far and away the biggest heart and soul to this particular film, like he had his moments in the show. showing the widest array of emotions, having his funny moments, sometimes still being locked into moments of proper humility. He actually feels like the one character that we actually see properly evolved, taking the second laundromat and making it into a noodle house, still watching over now grown kids. Smart Brain, now being a human-controlled agency with robotics at the helm, does tug a bit more into the lore and symbolism that is the core of the show. As in with Faiz, Orphanox are a forced imperfect human evolution, but human to begin with, thus easier to understand how coexistence should be possible. But in the context of the current era, we are so concerned with robots and AI replacing us that that's essentially what's happening here. And that's that finger on the trigger that makes me love some of the lore building that Inoue just has cooking up. The evolution of the writer system by Smart Brain also makes sense, and I love the technical showpiece to everything that they have with it. Though, using the knuckle and hitting someone with the screen side out, not so Smart Brain. But predictive AI was actually a very nice touch, as well as showing us just how far it's all come. But it doesn't look like it works well with old tech, but for some reason, Orphanox can still be tracked? Yeah, it's weird. But that final fight was indeed my favorite part of this whole entire film, as I was really wondering, while watching it, just how they were going to handle the new thing when it comes to crossover films, because that's a thing that's prevalent nowadays. We get crossovers just about every single year. Because I was thinking, are they going to replace him with it just being Next Faiz, or do they pull a Super Ichigo and forget that it was even ever a thing? But no, having him go back to the OG suit, Otto Vigen was there with him, even though, yeah, it was CG, but you know, I'll take anything, because I know they didn't save that Otto Vigen suit. Would have wished. It's a good suit. It's a really good suit. But that entire thing, plus that OST just hitting, fantastic. Loved it. All that OST really just be hitting on that deep-seated memories, and I'm feeling it. The new song by Issa, though, is okay. It's not something that I see myself listening to on repeat, though. The film does have some comedic bits to it, but the issues that I have stem from one of the serious beats of having joking moments in it, mostly in terms of delivery or execution. I mean, Mari's fall scene didn't have to look so damn funny, which is where the original series and film shines above this one, as it was serious when it needed to be, and it had its off jokes and moments sometimes, but it still had that young adult drama feel. While here, it feels like it's almost there, but not quite. But if they were to continue with this story, as, like I mentioned, it's kind of open-ended and is sequel bait, then I would like them to go back to the proper drama aspect, but properly mature it for both its stars and audience. As watching it essentially felt like I was watching a teen drama played by actors in their near and over 40s, so it just hits weird. I still remain that if they stuck with the movie timeline, that there would have been more context and stuff to work with in terms of giving us a proper 20 years after. But hey, it's Inoue out here cooking, so we'll see. But the signs were kind of there. Hell, the first promo shot that we got looked like it was straight out of Paradise Lost and not the actual show itself. Overall, it really does sound like I have way more criticisms for this film than maybe some other folks, but it's just because Faiz is so near and dear to my heart that I really wanted more, but maybe I overhyped myself, and maybe that's my problem. I still enjoyed what we got, but there was room for so much better and so much more. It really just depends on where we go from here. But those are some of my thoughts, because I could keep going and going and going and just keep rambling, but what are yours? What did you think about Kamen Rider Faiz Paradise Regained? Did you watch the series first before going into this, or did you not watch the show and just went into it? Bet that was a trip. If they do continue down the road of making more in this timeline, how would you like it to continue on? Would you like it to remain in this style, or kind of go a little bit more mature, or maybe even more crazy off the walls? Anyway, currently, That's it for me. I might make a follow-up video regarding on how these anniversary projects are being handled, but that is a task for another day. Either way, that's it for me. Open your eyes for the next Faiz, and I will catch you all next time. Until then, bye.